Hi there. Welcome to the Tinderbox meetup on Saturday, April 15th. For those in the US, not in California, it's tax day. For those in California, because all of the nasty weather we've had, taxes have been delayed till October. So that's a good thing. Exactly. Welcome everybody. Today we're kicking off our Tinderbox meetup. As always, for those that may be watching this for the first time, what we do is people go around and they introduce themselves if they've not been here before. Then we have people talk about their projects, what they're working on. And then if we have a theme, we talk about our theme, or we just dig into any other crazy stuff that happens to come up. But the whole idea is to talk through the lens of learning, personal information, knowledge management, and the use of various knowledge management tools, including Tinderbox, that we use for exploring our knowledge. So with that today, let's jump right in. I don't see anyone new, so let's move on to the next topic. What concepts, challenges, ideas, stuff that you've been working on with within Tinderbox or other tools that you guys want to talk about today? So what are you thinking?
I'll start because I've actually been working on something.
All right.
So I've sort of, as a little exercise to practice things like using, grabbing different parts of a string, I've got a list of German nouns that, let's see if I can share the screen. Here we go. So if I make it a bit bigger, I guess.
Don't see anything yet.
Don't see, share, sorry. Now?
Yeah, now's good.
Okay, so I've been filling around sort of stepwise trying to work this out. So basically you can see here is so actually let me find another one. That's not the perfect idea. So basically what I've done, that's the version. This is the text that I've scanned in. So what we have here is for battery, the German noun for battery, and it has some information there. So if you know, German has three genders, der, die, and das. And because this is from a very old worksheet when I was first learning German more than 20 years ago, just was like a teacher's handout. And so instead of writing out the full article, it's only the last letter. So this is D, battery, and then the ending for the plural form, while the plural form endings are very complex in German. Now, we have some irregular forms like child, children, but mainly it's car, cars, table, tables. But there are numerous ending forms here. And what I've been trying to do is using action code to grab either the E or the R or the I, convert that to its full form. So this should be D, yep, and place that, I've actually called it article grammar for now, so that should end up here. Battery should start there alone, and the N should go down to plural ending in there. Is that going to work? And then to combine battery and N for the plural noun form to end up here.
Right.
And I thought I'd had it, but there are some, because this is like this was for a beginner German class where what we call a mass noun, like in general use, a noun does not have a plural form. Like benzene is gas or petrol. And I mean, there is a plural form, but it's not used that often. And the trouble was the code that I was using was actually not working when it was like this.
Like what?
And well, see here, it's just S for das, benzene, and then there's no extra entry, like the comma and then the plural ending. It's not like, yep, the battery with the, yep. And now let me go down here. So I was fooling around and I thought I had it with this here. And I don't know, there's quite a lot of stuff there. Let me make it a bit bigger maybe. is that I began to fool around just with action codes step by step, and which is quite lengthy. So to get
Yeah.
that S, yep.
Can I suggest some faster ways?
Mm,
Yeah, so I see all that, and that looks great. But the challenge is, so there are some broader, faster ways to look at this. So go back up to your note.
yep.
And let's stop. Let's stop there too, just from a basic mechanic perspective. So you've got your note. So let's before we move on. So the actual word you have is battery.
Yep.
How do you pronounce that in German? My accent.
Battery.
Battery. Okay.
But
Okay.
it doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No. But so you've got that battery is the name. And at the end, and the other elements, this E is what do you call the article grammar? Is with the E.
Yeah. So yeah,
And the
article
hyphen
grammar.
N is what? What's the hyphen N again? That's the
Oh,
plural,
this
that's the
is
plural
the
ending.
plural ending.
Right. So in the end,
Yep.
so let's talk about what our end goal is, right? So our part of our end goal is to parse this information out and get it into its atomic parts, right?
Yep.
My other question to you is, do we want the name just to be battery?
Well,
Or because then what you can end up doing is you could use display attributes to display those elements in the name, but you get the name down to its pure word and not have those
yes,
other elements burnt into it.
exactly. And that's what I've done. So here you can see for bet, which is bed, it's all here. And I put the prefix NN. So if I'm skipping between, because the idea is to link this to with the relevant adverbs and adjectives and things like that.
And a prefix
Yep.
is great. And what does NN stand for?
Noun.
Noun.
I
Okay.
just put
So,
NN for
yeah. So,
noun.
so
Yeah.
you've got a prefix for noun. So then you know every note that's a noun. It's prefix space that, and then you can have other elements there. So okay, we're generally going in the right track there. So the way I would do this is I try to do the Occam's razor model of the simplest is better. So one thing you could start doing is if I'm going down there, you seem to have a pretty consistent pattern. And the consistent pattern is outside of the ends, which you've already cleaned up. So you've got some
Yep.
words that you've already cleaned up, right? So one of the things,
Yep.
so the and can you right mouse click on the note icon to the left? Is that it? I was just trying to see if you have a prototype assigned to the note.
Oh, do I have a? Yes, I do. Just
What is
P
it?
note.
What is it? P note. Okay. So one thing I would
Yep.
encourage you to do is let's create a P noun, right?
Okay.
Because noun is a noun, and so you're trying to create a nouns for all of these words, whereas P note would be like for your notes and stuff like that. And so and what I would do to make this quick, go to P note. Okay. Go click on the displayed attribute box on the top right. No, don't copy it. I'm just going to show you
okay.
way, right? You can
Okay.
you deleted your
And
P
here?
no, yeah, you deleted your P noun too.
That's okay. I can put it back in. But
Yeah.
so I've got P note.
Yeah, do a Command A. No.
So
No, click on the displayed attribute box.
for P note.
Yeah. Go to P note, click on P note, click on the displayed attribute box. Do a Command A.
Copy them.
Hit Command C, then go back to your P noun. And that's like the fastest
Yep.
way to get another, unless you've copied the prototype, that's the fastest way to kind of copy attributes.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
So now you've got a note called P noun. I'd encourage you to like add a visual icon to that because it will get confusing sometimes. Maybe you click on a badge and find an icon that represents noun to you, possibly in the symbols.
Yeah, possibly in the symbols. What's a noun here? I mean, a noun is an object. Do we have what could be a noun? I'll just put a bell. A bell sounds good.
Yeah, for now, but just whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just you can always change it. So then what I would go is I would now I'd put that prototype on all of those notes.
Okay.
And then all you need, there you go. There you go. Now the other thing is I go back to P noun, the prototype P noun.
Yep.
And I add an attribute
Okay.
and go ahead and start typing and say is processed, for the lack of a better term. You can do this later and make that a Boolean.
Yep. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Right? Because now the ones
Yep.
that you've already processed, you want to go back and say, check that Boolean.
Yep. Yep. Okay. So it's simply these ones here,
Those three,
and I could,
right?
yep. I just got to do an update for the thing. Yep. I'll just do one for now. Is processed, because there's a complication in German that makes it a little bit more difficult. And this is why house has a red flag, because, you know, in German, we have what we call the umlaut. So we have, let's just put one here, the A, the two dots. We have, where is it here? O, just, and so house in German, singular is house, but plural is, yep. And the action code to change that, I imagine, would be quite difficult. So I just thought those nouns that have where the main vowel does change to that with the umlaut, just to red flag it, go back and change it manually.
You could, yeah, I mean that's fine. You could,
Mm.
but we could figure that out with action code too. But
Okay.
let's go. Let's just now. And I find there's a couple ways to write a stamp. So one way is let's go pick one of the words like the first one. Let's pick one with that as the main pattern, like the fourth one down. Build. What is that one? BILD.
Build. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That's picture.
Okay.
Yep.
So one way is hit Command 1 and
Yep.
simply work in the stamp window.
Yep.
And then
Where am
click
I with stamps? Stamps. I get confused here with stamps.
and
Here.
then click on
Yep.
stamp. So you could be working on it there. So you could hit new stamp and move that around. That's one way to do it. The other way to
Mm.
do it is and for now, let's just go ahead and hit plus real quick. Up.
Okay. Stamps and plus. Yep.
And plus and give it a name. Let's say noun parsing.
Yep.
Okay. So you could be sitting there writing the action code in there. That's fine, and people know how to do that. Go ahead and close that window real quick for me.
Yep.
We'll scroll down to the stamps area.
Yep. We've got all these stamps here, and here's noun
So
parsing.
now,
Yep.
now what you want to do is highlight on that one, right mouse click on it,
Yep.
and say text window.
Text. Yep. Text window. Where's text window? Yep.
Hold on, okay.
There. Yep.
Now the reason why you do that is you can move that off to the left, and now you could be, and now scroll up to your noun.
Yep. That's what I was doing as well. Here. Yep. Oops. And window.
And then you want to
Did I
move
get
the
the text window?
No,
There it
no.
is.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. And now like move the text
Yeah.
window to the right, so and then move and maybe shorten your Tinderbox window so they're side by side. So that way you can be writing your action code and the Tinderbox notes are side by side.
Yep. Yep. Okay.
Okay. So now what you want to do is let's start writing your action code. So let's say if parenthesis $ is processed equals false equals false
equals
false.
Yep.
Nope, you don't need the quotes.
You don't need the quotes. Of course not, because yep.
Okay, parenthesis.
Close parenthesis.
Yep. And then the curly bracket open, and then immediately do a close curly bracket and put a semicolon. Right.
Yep.
So there's some space. Okay, so now you've got your if condition. So you can apply this stamp to anything, and if it's false, then it will work. If it's not, then it won't. Okay.
Yep.
Now what you want to do is your pattern basically is the core thing I'm seeing here is these spaces are the key, and every noun is followed by a comma.
Yep.
Okay. So what you can do is go ahead and hit create it. Go to the next line.
Okay.
Okay, so if I'm doing this, I would say var : list.
Var.
VAR.
Oh yes, sorry. Yes, var and
list.
Yep. Yep.
List. And then I'd say vlist.
Yep.
Equals dollar sign equals dollar sign name.
Yep.
Let me just make sure my door is closed. Just a minute.
Yep.
My dog likes to chase the lawnmower. Equals name dot split
Yep.
parentheses colon space colon
Parentheses.
quote sorry
Parentheses.
quote
Quote.
parentheses quote space quote
Colon. So.
no quote no colon
Sorry. So sorry. Yes. Just
parentheses space parentheses
space. Yep.
close parentheses semicolon.
Yep. That's it. Yep.
So what
I
you're
understand.
telling Tinderbox to do is create me a list of name as parsed out by the spaces.
Yep.
Right. So now for you absolutely know. So and again, if we want to, if just to see this, what this result is doing, do a favor for me and go over to the note and go to the displayed attributes. Go to the displayed attributes.
Okay.
Okay. And type my
To
list.
reset.
No. Okay, that's fine. Type my list.
My
Capital
list.
L.
Sorry. Yeah. I know. Okay.
So the other thing is now just for practicing purposes, go back to your action stamp.
Yep.
Create a new line
Under the variable. Yep.
Yeah, and say my list equals name dot split. Just copy everything after the equal sign on the list above.
Okay.
Right, and then you need the dollar sign, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so now go ahead and go to the you can right mouse click on the note.
Yep.
And apply the stamp.
Where is? Oh yeah.
Go to stamps.
Stamp. Sorry. Now I'm passing.
Okay.
Yep.
So
And there's the list.
you see that's your list. So now and again, we're not going to need the list after we've done it. So
No.
sometimes when you're learning the ASCII code, it's helpful to see it actually in the my lists because you can see what's happening. So you see now we have a delineated list of the everything in spaces. And you'll also note, which is really interesting, for like that first one, benzene, whatever that is.
Yep.
Okay. You'll note that one doesn't have a space at the end. The list won't have a third entry.
Perfect. That's
and that one and so therefore you don't care. It doesn't matter.
Yep. I forgot.
So if
I
you
put that in my list.
go ahead and apply the stamp, redo a reset. Yeah. And so now you've got step one, step two. So now you always know, because you've got a very delineated pattern, right? The first entry in the list is always going to be your article grammar. The second entry in the list is always going to be the name. And the third entry list is whatever the stuff is you have on the end, whether or not it has an umlaut or not. And again, consistently in your pattern is you've got a hyphen there. So then we can, so now we know we can start iterating against this pattern. So now what you want to do is go back to your stamp and say $ article grammar equals vlist dot at at parenthesis
Yep.
0
yeah, of course, because of the numbering. Yep.
Parenthesis semicolon. So what you're saying is grab me the first item in the list. And because it's I don't know the right terminology for it, I'm not a coder. I think it's because I don't know what the right list is, but the base of the list it starts at 0.
Yep.
And then an increment goes up from that. So the first item in the list is 0, the second item in the list is 1, and so on. Maybe someone on the call would know what we call that, but that's what it is. Okay. So now go ahead and apply the stamp.
Yep, I will. I'll just do it over here as well. Stamp. Yep. and it's, but of course the S, I want to change that to DAS, the DAS. So the extended form, the proper
we'll deal with
form.
that later. Let's get everything parsed out
Yep.
first, and then we'll deal with that later.
Yep.
Okay.
So that means then that the
Okay. So
the next part,
what would the next part be?
um, so we've got the list. That means I can easily, I'm looking at, I guess I can easily do just simply name
Yeah, but I
equal.
would do name last,
Yep, good.
just in case you
Then,
screw something up.
yep.
Right.
What I want
I'll
is,
always leave your core data untouched until you know it's right.
yeah. So the plural ending, this is the part, the hyphen, the third part. So that's equals vlist dot at 2 because of the numbering system.
Right.
Yeah. So if I go down to which one was it? Look at. Oops. Sorry, that's just my connection to my external screen.
We don't see it. It's fine.
Oh, good. Stab. Now I'm passing, and it's there. Perfect. Yep.
All right. Now you don't need the plural. So create a new line
Mm.
and say plural ending.
Yep. Actually, I do want that plural ending because that's a classification.
No, I know, but
What I want to,
but you don't necessarily need the hyphen, right?
it can actually stay there to help me with classification.
And in what way?
In the form as, for example, when I go down to house, Häuser, it's actually, no, you're right. I don't need it.
The
No,
hyphen's
I
not
can
serving
disappear.
you. The hyphen's not serving you.
No,
It's
no,
just
you are correct.
it's a visual affordance for the pattern when it's all scrunched together. But when
Yeah,
it's atomically broken apart, you don't need it.
exactly. Okay,
Right.
good.
Get
So,
rid of the hyphen. So go to plural ending.
yep.
No, new line.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, it
Plural.
doesn't matter, but it's just easier to read.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
equals. And now you're going to say plural ending.
with the dollar sign. Yep.
With the dollar sign.
Yep.
Okay. Dot replace.
Yep. Dot. Replace hyphen.
Quote height. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Comma.
comma, and then
2 commas with no space.
nothing.
Just 2 commas.
Yep.
2 quotes. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Stamp. Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So now we've cleaned that up. And so now you've got what you want. So now we can go to let's replace the name now.
Name equals vlist dot at 1.
And before you do
That should
that,
be
what do you
correct.
need to replace? You don't need the comma.
No. So I can chain these, can't I?
So
Or
then just say name equals name dot replace.
name equals after this or before this part?
After it.
Okay. Replace, and then my silly screen here for me. Name replace, then the
Okay. And what's wrong?
okay.
Something wrong.
Yep. Replace name equal. Yeah. Perfect.
Okay.
And that should work.
Should work. Okay. Now let's change it. Go ahead and put it back just for the sake of fun. Go manually type it.
The whole
The whole
three
thing. The
and
whole
like
thing. Yeah, the whole thing.
yep. That was
S space.
S space build comma WR. Okay. Yep.
Okay. What did we do? What did we miss? So what you could do now is you could say, now go ahead and do it again. Do another line break.
Mm.
Okay. And say, oh,
Maybe.
actually, no, before we do that. Okay, no, you don't need another line break. Do where
Okay.
name equals quote. No, the line above. The line above, sorry.
Okay. Get rid of the semicolon, or should it stay
No,
there?
no, no, no. No, say name equals, put your mouse right in front of the $ name.
Here.
Right.
So yep.
Quote NN hyphen space
NN hyphen space.
quote
Yep.
plus. And then put a
Okay.
semicolon at the end.
Yep. Now I got it. Yep.
Now apply the stamp.
Okay. I'll just click away to get everything up there. And then stamps. Perfect. Great.
Okay. Now the
Thanks.
one other thing we could have done is at the end of the line. Now add one more line
Yep.
and say $ is processed equals true.
Yep.
Now what you might want to do is you could hold that off, or you could create another interim step that says because you don't know if it's actually correct.
Mm.
So you could create another attribute called holding pattern, or type equals holding, or type equals draft.
Okay.
Said
So then I
dollar.
just have to eat.
So if you said
I
$
need
type equals draft, quote
as in.
quote the
Yep.
word draft,
Yep.
and then semicolon, and you'll notice the attribute type doesn't exist. So hit Command 1. Don't
Yep.
do it now. Just hit Command 1. Go to the user.
Yep. And add
Create the
new
attribute.
user. Yep. As a set or a string? Does it really
I'd make
matter?
it a set, because you're gonna have different types.
Yep.
You'll have all kinds of types.
Mm.
Now that you start
Mm.
using the term the attribute type, you'll end up with all kinds of different types.
Yep.
Okay. So now you've got a type. So it's a
Mm.
draft, and later you can go down to your prototype and add the prototype to your add type to your to your prototype.
Yep. Okay. So what is still missing is for article grammar. I'm going to have three possibilities at the moment. There's
Yep.
going to be S, or there's going to be E, or there's going to be R.
Okay.
And they need to be automatically converted to thus. I'll just do it like this quickly so we can see
No,
it.
no, no. This is a great way to do it.
Okay. I'll just make space here and there.
Okay. So
Yep.
in front of the S,
Yep.
put your mouse in, say if,
Yep.
parenthesis,
Yep.
article grammar equals S.
Yep. Then
Parenthesis,
yep.
curly bracket,
Yep.
then $ article grammar equals.
Oops. Sorry, I'm doing something silly here. It's that little pop-up window.
Yeah, equals.
Yep. Does.
And then close parenthesis, curly bracket.
Yep.
And then do the same
Okay.
for the other two.
Yep.
Now you
Okay.
could do some funky nesting
Mm.
where you say then if this then that, if this then that. But I find that nesting to be unnecessarily cruel, because
Mm.
it gets really convoluted. Whereas if you just do a series of if statements, it's easier to read and it's faster. Because if it's
Yep.
not S, then it ignores it.
Yep.
And you say, and then now, yeah, go ahead.
Oops. Okay.
Okay. Now the other thing we might want to do. So now you've created a stamp and it works and it's great. Now you could create a fourth one that says, if it's none of those, or if it's blank, or if it's none of those, then you give yourself an error, but that might be too much, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you absolutely know the pattern's there, then just leave it like that and you can do it manually later. The other thing you might want to fix is up in the is processed equals false.
Mm.
You could say is process equals false, and then after the word false,
Yep.
put in an or sign.
And or as in
So,
this.
so shift in the upward bar, the pipe,
Oh yes, of course. Sorry, the pipe. Yep.
and say dollar sign prefix or sign equals quote NN hyphen
Okay.
quote,
Yep.
right? And then what you might want to do is under where it says name equals down in your action code where it says name equals quote, create a new line underneath that one and say dollar sign prefix.
By here after where it
No,
says name equals.
create a new
Sorry.
line. Create a new
Yep.
line. Dollar sign prefix equals NN hyphen
Yep. And then
semicolon.
yeah, of course. Yep.
So now what this is going to do is if the note already, because if you were to apply this stamp to the end build, it would parse at the space, which is not what you want. You don't want that. Once you've processed it once, if it's got the prefix, you don't want it parsing at the space. So if I'm saying if the prefix does not equal the NN hyphen, then I want you to parse it at the space. Otherwise,
Yep.
no. Or the other way to do it is to say, and I don't know what your other notes have, if they already have prefixes. Go to one of your other notes. Have you already put the prefix in?
Yes, here for bet. Yeah.
No, that one's already processed. Go to
Yep.
one of the unprocessed ones.
Okay.
Right. So you already
Yep.
have the prefix there. So then our condition on the if is processed is not going to work.
Okay.
Right. So we need to think about the other. Okay, I know what to do. Say in the if the if is processed equals false, where it says dollar sign prefix,
Yep.
change that to name. If name dot I contains
Name dot I. Yep.
no, that's not going to work either. All right, let's not worry about that now. Let me come back to that. Delete all that name stuff.
Yep. So back to the prefix.
No, just leave it. No, the prefix is not going to work.
Okay. Okay.
Or actually, no, you can put the prefix in. Actually, do that.
Okay.
No, actually, no. Take it out. It's not going to work because because you already have it populated.
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, I can always.
You can always manually fix it later, and we'll deal with it. We'll deal with that condition later. So now you essentially now go ahead and apply that to one of your notes.
Okay. Stamp and now. Yep. Okay.
Okay. And now we can go ahead and do the similar if statement with like your umlauts and stuff.
So, for example, here is one. Kühlschrank is refrigerator or fridge, and you can see here the umlaut in the plural form will be over the A, and then there'll be an E at the end. So that's the umlaut here refers to the last vowel in the word, and then plus the E here at the end of it here. So we want that to look something like, oops, that's the wrong button. Okay. At the end, Kühlschränke, yeah? So that's the plural form.
Okay. Well, there's a couple ways to do that. Well, one, you could actually just have another attribute called the plural form.
Yeah, and that's it here, plural noun form.
Yeah.
That's it.
You just, do you just want to paste that in, or do you want to automate the creation of the plural noun form?
It would be great to automate it.
But is the pattern always going to be consistent?
Well,
If there's an umlaut,
basically,
if there's an umlaut, does the umlaut always end up on the last vowel and e is at the end?
well, it depends on the vowel. So, for example, apple is apfel, and the plural form, it's only on the A because generally E doesn't take an umlaut.
Right. So essentially what you're now trying to do is, incorporate the German, what do you call it? What do you call it when you do umlauts and all that?
Yeah, yeah, I can't remember the term right now, but
Right. So my point being is that's a really complicated set of rules. So for the time being, since you know the word, you can just manually paste in the noun.
Yep,
Of it.
yep, yep. And so the idea was to automatically give it a red flag so it doesn't actually create the plural noun form. Let me go down. Where did I do this? When in my very complex here text window, where did I have that here? I had it. See here, I've basically got the different categories of noun ending.
Mm-hmm.
And you see when the umlaut comes up, I've got, yeah, if name ends with umlaut E, plural ending remains the same. And the same, oh no, that's correct. Oh yeah, and if plural ending contains the umlaut, then flag it with red.
Okay. So let's just copy that line right there. Go to your other stamp.
Yep.
And why don't you say, is it plural? It's no longer plural ending. What is it? Go back to one of your notes.
Yep. Actually, let me go back up to here. Well, it is. This is the plural. Let's go back to this is the plural ending the er. So I've still got that.
Right, but the one with the umlaut. Go to the one with the umlaut.
Yep.
Like,
And see, it's still there.
yeah. So okay, so it is there. So and we want to get rid of the hyphen in there at some point. But you could say if plural ending dot contains, and
The umlaut.
you don't necessarily need the hyphen there. Just say the umlaut.
Yep. So replace.
No,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Now I understand. Yes. Yes. Of course.
there, and that works. So that should be
Yep.
You can apply that stamp to that note.
Yep.
And before you do that though, get rid of the NN in the name.
Oh yes. Of course.
And later you can modify that and you have space there. But for now, just apply the stamp to that note now.
Oops. I just did something silly there. That doesn't matter. I'll just reset.
Well, no, and you deleted the note actually. So hit undo.
Yep.
A couple times. There you go.
Yep. Okay. Oh, what I want to do, I'll just get rid of the red flag because that was, oops. Okay, I'll just quickly go to there and get rid of it. And then I'll apply the stamp. Yep. Okay. And there it is. And that red flag, it means that I just have to go in and type,
yeah, whatever manual character you need to type in.
Yep, just that.
Okay, and then what you can do is we can have another stamp that creates now if that a rule that's running like is if is processed equals true, then clear the flag.
Ah, yeah. Should that be part of this one or a separate stamp?
I create a separate one and just
Okay.
put it on as a rule.
Okay. So
no, I would put it on as a rule. I'd put it on the note because you want it automated.
okay, so actually up here on the
no, on the prototype.
On the prototype, yes. Yep. Okay. Prototype P noun. Okay, so go here to rule, and it'll simply be if is process, is it equivalent or the one equal to?
Equals.
Yep,
True.
yep.
Then
Badge, I guess.
yep.
Badge. Double equals again or no?
Oh,
Okay.
and then just semicolon.
Ah, yes, of course. Yep.
And then for those that aren't listening, what that does is that defaults to the inheritance of the prototype.
Yep. Okay, so let's go up to here. Oh, what happened to the house? Reset. Oh, what's happening there?
Check the
I know
prototype.
why, because it's I hadn't changed the prototype on it yet. Okay, is processed and it's gone. There it is. Yep, perfect. Let's just let's try once more. And now I'm parsing. Okay. But for some reason, how I, oh, I know, sorry, I haven't changed all the notes. Or have I? Because this hasn't put
Yeah,
in the
reset the.
something's gone wrong there. I've done something. Okay. I'll go back.
Or remember your stamp is processed equals true.
Mm,
So what you
mm.
want to do is go back to your stamp and undo that is processed equals true, because that's why we put in the type draft. So look at look at
He,
the stamp. No, look at your stamp.
yep, sorry. If processed equals true, so just get rid of that or
Get rid of that line, because you for yourself you actually have,
mm,
or actually what you might want to say is, if there isn't an umlaut, then just, that's the way to do it. So in front of that is processed,
mm.
say if
Text I contains.
say dollar plural ending dot contains, or how do we do does not contains? I don't remember. Let's experiment
Uh,
with this. Let's figure out, how do you do it does not contains?
isn't that if you put the exclamation mark at the front of the
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
yep umlaut,
Yeah.
and I've got to grab an umlaut from somewhere.
You got it on the
Where
bottom,
have I got it?
the last line on the list.
Yep, perfect. I'll just grab the whole thing here. Copy. Okay. Then is processed equals true?
Correct. And you don't need the quote.
Oh no, that's the problem. That's why it's red. I couldn't work out why it was red.
Put the two semicolons back. One and
Yeah,
one on the other side after true as well.
a semicolon here.
Yeah. It's not
Ah,
necessary. It's not necessary, but if you ever want to extend that line, you would have a semicolon after it.
okay,
And then
okay.
you need one more closed parentheses after the
Yes,
dot contains.
yep.
So now you're saying if it's got an umlaut, then if it doesn't have an umlaut, then just make it true. Otherwise, and actually what you could do, actually, let's make it even fun. Where it says type,
Mm,
and this is why we wanted the second semicolon, where it says type draft, take that whole line
yep.
and delete it, take that whole line, copy it, and delete it, and put it
Okay.
after, and after that, put the, before the semicolon, type the word else.
Here, here, here.
Yeah.
Yep,
And then open curly bracket,
yep.
paste, semicolon,
Close.
right? So what you're saying is, if it doesn't have an umlaut, then make it true, else make it a draft.
Okay. Okay. Yep. Perfect.
And
And
then what,
actually,
and then what you could do is where it says badge equals red, grab
yes.
the badge equals red and put that after the draft.
Okay. Paste it into those curly brackets.
Correct.
Okay.
Now what we basically combined it says, and you could reverse it. So you could say if plural dot contains the umlaut, then do this. But in this case, we're saying if it does not contain an umlaut, then make it true. Else, make it a draft and assign it red.
Okay. Yep. And then I can get rid of this line here. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Great. So let me see here. What happens if perfect. Well, there's the red flag. So that means all I need to go to is go back, and I've got the plural ending form, and the plural noun form is simply going to be there it is. And then I can say
So
is processed.
Go ahead and reset the.
Yep. Reset. Okay. And go to is processed.
Before you do that, go to your prototype.
All right, prototype down here. Yep. The noun. And
Is where it says the rule is processed equals true, badge equals nothing.
on my stamp.
No, in the rule.
In the rule, yes. Okay.
After the semicolon after badge.
Yep.
Type draft equals or type or $ type equals I don't know, complete.
Yep.
Because you want a clear draft. It's no longer a draft. It's now complete.
Yep.
And maybe a capital
C. Sorry?
Maybe a capital C. I don't know how you want to do it.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, I pick up these. I'm very good at picking up little words and things. Okay.
All right.
I haven't actually put in the type yet. I mean, it's there.
Yeah, but go ahead and make it. If you want to display it, go ahead and display it.
Yeah. Okay.
Above short title or something like. I tend to put type on the top.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. And then the one last thing I might want to do is right now your English version is in the text. Right? You've got a thing called English form.
Yep. And this is what I worked out is English form equals text paragraph 0.
Perfect.
Yep.
So put that into your stamp.
Yep. Okay. And I'll just put a gap there for me. Yep. Okay. And so okay, let's see what happens here. Gasthof is like pub or restaurant, although people would say that that's not a true translation of Gasthof. You've got to experience the German Gasthöfe. It's like a guest house.
Okay. Now let's pause right here though. I'm seeing this something immediately. The / is not going to benefit you in the future. So I would say under their type English $ English form equals.
Yep. Directly under.
No.
Under
Leave
here.
that. Leave that. Create a new line. $ English form equals. $ English form. Dot replace.
Sorry.
Yeah.
The equal form equals done.
Okay. Parenthesis, quote, / quote.
Okay.
Comma, quote. Semicolon, quote.
Semicolon, quote. Okay.
Close parentheses, semicolon, and then go to your user attributes.
As in up here on the click
there, go to your user attributes.
Yep.
Go to English. No. Go to English form
English form. Yep.
and make it a list.
Ah, yeah.
Because
Okay.
that way, if the word has pub, restaurant, if it has multiple English words associated with it, it's now a list.
Perfect.
So now apply that stamp to that note. Let's see what happens.
Okay.
And if you open up the text pane a little bit so we can see it,
Yep.
you'll now see that we've got a
Ah,
list.
yeah. Yep. Yep.
What you could do too is now you say text equals nothing and you clear the text.
Yeah, I'm sure I've got that. Yep. Okay. And just with the semicolon, is that correct?
Yeah, or
Yeah.
to make it clear, quote, doesn't matter, same thing.
And semicolon. Yeah. Okay, perfect. And get rid of that for a moment. Yeah, so yeah, that's much easier than what I did. So much easier. Yep. Yep. Perfect. Thank you. I had an idea what I needed to do, but it's quite difficult, for the what do you call them, the dot replace, dot at, the operators and everything not to get lost in them.
Yeah. But the key, the ultimate thing is start with your pattern. Right. And if you have and the key for me is if there's a very consistent pattern, from that consistent pattern, you can create a list. And then from a list, you can parse a list. And then from parsing, and then you can think of, and then rather than trying to do everything at once, you can then say, once I've parsed it down, then what do I do with this other element? Oh, I've got to treat this umlaut. And so you just start breaking it into its little parts. And biting it off one little piece at a time.
Yeah, and I actually started this because last week when we looked at the different display views in Tinderbox, I realized that the hyperbolic view is very good. So, like I've got adjectives, especially adjectives and adverbs and expressions and function words, that the hyperbolic view shows those connections very easily. Right. And often it's showing these word maps to people where they just get that click, oh, I understand now the topic. So, I'm often working with business people who really want to know how to present complex information, and often just showing them a kind of spider view, the hyperbolic view of phrases and things that they quickly feel more confident in a telephone call. And so that's what I'm heading with at the moment with Tinderbox, that I can use this in my English teaching as well, when I'm working with business people, giving presentations and things. Because often they have the subject-specific vocabulary, but they don't feel very comfortable or very confident when it comes to presentations or telephone conference calls and things.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, this is great. I mean, this is a really important exercise. Because let's just kind of summarize what we did here. What we did is we leveraged several dot operators. We conceived of and thought through the concept of approaching a problem in Tinderbox. I've got a piece of text that's got a discrete and consistent pattern. And it's a pattern that is consistent enough that I can apply it to 80%, 90% of the notes, and then the 10% that it gets weird, then I can manually update them. And then we thought through, for those that we need to manually update, we put a little red badge on them or flag them as a draft, and that gives me some ideas on how do I need to go back and do that. We then learned about conditional notes and and how to do conditional transformations. And then we learned how to replace and remove chaff like hyphens and things like that we don't need. So I also noticed you've got in some of your other some of your plural endings had some hyphens in there, but that's kind of stuff you can clean up later.
Yep, exactly. Yep. No, thank you. And as I said, it's been really good to go through that, and I can see the initial fault was complicating the way I was looking at that string. And I can now see how that got me off into different. Yeah. So,
I can't tell
oh,
you how many literally years I've
mm,
wasted doing
mm,
similar approaches.
yeah.
Oh.
No, good, great.
All right.
Yeah. And so thank you very much. On just one other thing, my daughter has accepted the offer from College of the Atlantic. So she'll be off to there in September.
Fantastic.
She decided against Clark and Lewis and Clark in Oregon, and has gone to College of the Atlantic. It looks great for her. Very small. They their whole process, whole philosophy is based on human ecology, and they branch off to all these amazing areas. They've got 2 research islands. One is to research the ocean birds, and the other the ocean mammals. And she's always been interested in that area as well. So very exciting.
So is
Yep.
so it's not marine, is it, would that be categorized as marine biology?
Yeah,
College of the Atlantic.
exactly.
Okay, because my son wants to do marine biology. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, they've only got about 360 people, students, so it's very small.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna look that up this afternoon. Okay.
Great.
Before we move on, if people don't mind, I want to show you one thing that's, I don't mean to water your eyes on this, but I want to show you something really cool. Where did I do it there? Is it this one? Yeah. Let me make sure. Here we go. Got it. Okay. I want to show everyone this real quick. And then, but before I do that, does anybody else have any comments, questions about what we just went through with Phillip? Was that helpful, interesting, useful? You're nodding your head, Dave. Yeah. You're on mute if you're saying
I
something.
know. Yes, it was useful. The step by step,
Awesome.
albeit remote control. Click on this thing.
Yeah. But hopefully, people will be able to kind of follow that out and step by step it. Before I go show some other like eye bleeding cool stuff that I worked on this week. Does anybody have any other questions, comments, projects they're working on? Bruce, you got anything?
One final comment from me is what I've found very helpful is looking at a lot of these TBX files taken from either from Michael's videos or from these sessions here, and then trying to backward engineer the action code so that I'm actually understanding it. So what I'm finding though is that I reach that point where, oh yeah, I understand why it's constructed in that way, but how do I replicate that, or how do I apply that to my own situation? So that's why I thought something like this might be useful as well. And so thanks again.
Yeah, no,
thanks
that
a
was
lot.
fun. It was good.
To
Absolutely.
answer your question, Michael,
Yeah.
I enjoyed it sort of the way I enjoy watching a lunar eclipse. Is I appreciate the majesty of it, and yet I'm not flying to the moon anytime soon.
Yeah.
So no, go with it. It just helps me appreciate all of the various really impressive things that Tinderbox is capable of. And at the same time, I keep slogging away. I use it daily or every other days, but you'd have to put a lot of liquor in me for me to show anyone what I do with it.
Got it. Yeah. Interesting.
So we'll get there.
Okay,
This is
awesome.
an incremental learning path.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so if anybody doesn't, if nobody has anything else, I can show you something very cool that I figured out this week. You guys want to see something very cool? All right, let's play with something very cool. All right, and let's think about how I want to walk you through it. Okay, let me do it step by step. So I'm going to create a new note called test. Okay, and I'm going to open this up. Let's see in our sense of, this is going to be a continuation of what we did last week. So you remember last week when we were developing a table. Let me just make sure I do this right. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. Okay, So I think you all know I'm working on this event in May for the Mobile Ecosystem Forum, and I'll give you and someone else actually too talked about how do we use URLs. So you notice for those who might be watching this, I've created a bunch of like placeholder URLs. So for me, like I've now kind of defaulted. I've stopped using even in some respects the bookmarking on the Google browser, because I can now pop to my event really quick because I know where the URL is for my event. It's always in this one place on the note. So this is the event we're putting on, and the marketing team wanted from me, hey, can you give me the sessions that we're having, a table that's the sessions in the morning and the sessions in the afternoon that we're putting on for this event. And so I was thinking about that. And if I go down to this day here, and I go ahead and I preview, let's double check to make sure I got the right template. I don't. I want to preview the event day. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to preview this note, and this is how I've organized the event day. So my first template I built for this, gave me a summary of all of the sessions, and then it broke it up, and it was the morning of organizational identity, the afternoon of personal data and identity, and all of the different speakers and all this different stuff. And this is really valuable information for me to be able to manage the event. I need this as the event programmer to be able to dig in and deal with the details of the event, or walk through the curative narrative of the event. But the marketing team doesn't need all that information. The marketing team just wants what they want, and what they want is a 2-column table of the sessions that are happening in the morning and the sessions that are happening in the afternoon. So then we ask ourselves, well, how are we going to go about doing that? So let's go ahead here, and I'll walk you through how I went about doing that. So I went into Tinderbox, and I scrolled down to my templates, and I just opened up a new template called test template, which was this one. And I started out as a blank note like this. All right. And so there's my blank test template. And so I was thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, well, how am I going to go about building a 2-column template? And so I literally just started with this. Well, what do I need for the 2-column template? So the first thing I know I'm going to need is I'm going to need a string of session rows, right? And the rows are the rows of the column. And let's go back to so we can keep referring back to this. So what I'm going to need is I'm going to need a table that provides me the rows of each of the sessions of the column. So I know I'm going to need rows. And what's the other variable that I know I'm going to need? I know I'm going to need a variable of string the table. So I'm going to need, because so I'm essentially, and so I'm thinking through what are the different kind of things that I'm going to need to use to be able to construct this. So then I ask myself, well, and let's take a break and say, okay, well, how is a table constructed in HTML? So a table is constructed in HTML if you go table, and I'm going to want it to have a border. And a table has to have a table close. And then if I'm going to have a 2-column table, I'm going to say table row, and we close the table row. And then I'm going to have a table data. We close the table data. And I'm going to have another table data. And we close that. And then we have another table row. And we open that. All right. And I know now I need to have 2 table datas here. And I go like that. And so in the end, what I'm going to need is something like this. And what I'm going to need is enough rows that address all of the sessions for that, every session, the maximum number of sessions that I'm going to be having in the event. And typically what I'll do too, and I do this all the time, I'll say, well, I don't really remember. I'll pull this up in a second. W3C schools tables. And I'll say, well, wait a minute, I'm forgetting, how is a table constructed? So what I'll do is I'll pop up W3C School's website. And what this web, this is how you do tables. And I can go ahead here and I'm saying, oh, okay, this is how you do a table. Right. So, and what I can actually do is I can go over to my Tinderbox code. Let me go find that window. I can actually test my code by grabbing this, going back to the WC3 School's website, going to their test table. I can erase all of that and hit run. Oops. Let's see what I did wrong. Oh, because this website wants its the headers and footers. So we'll go ahead and test it myself. And I'm going to put that in there, and I don't need their stuff in here. And I hit run. And you'll see it's giving me a table, right? And it's giving me this small little table because it's great. But at least now I know that table structure works. So I'm kind of testing it in another tool to get a sense of, okay, that's the table I want. And if I want to get rid of the style sheets here, just to make it easier for myself, and because I don't need styles, and get this as clear as possible, I can run again. And border equals, let's put some text in here. Maybe the WC3 schools actually, okay, there you go. Order. And why am I not getting the, and I can see my typo, put in an equals. Now I've got, so by using another tool like that too, I can instantly see the typos that I just did. So if I go back here, move that to the side so I can get that window back. Like that here. So I've got my typo there. So let's go ahead and fix that. So now I know that this table is a properly formatted HTML table. So I'm thinking through, well, let's go back to what I said I needed. I need to build this table, and this table essentially is 2 columns with the morning and afternoon sessions. And so if you think about it, as you're building the table, what I need Tinderbox to do is I say, go get me the first session in the morning and go get me the first session in the afternoon. Go get me the second session in the morning, go get me the second session in the afternoon. So I'm needing Tinderbox to essentially create 2 lists for me. So then if I move that to the side and we go back to Tinderbox, I can say, no, if that's the table we want, and I know for a fact what I need in here, I need Tinderbox to create a session headers or table headers. And I need Tinderbox to then create the rows for each session. Okay, so and then down here, I'm saying, let's just comment it all out. Open table, comment it out down here, close table. Okay, so I know I now know what I need Tinderbox to build for me. And what I need to have is in here, I'm going to say morning sessions. Here, I'm going to say afternoon sessions. And then here is going to be this has to be dynamic, and we'll say dynamically create. Right? Because what I need Tinderbox to do is dynamically create the number of rows I need in that table to capture every morning and afternoon session. So if I go back up here, what's another one of the critical variables I need as I'm thinking this through? String. Okay, it's not going to be a string, it's going to be a list. And that list is going to be v morning sessions, and spell it properly. And I also know I'm going to need a v list v afternoon sessions. Okay. Okay. So I'm going through there and I'm thinking that through. Okay. So I now know I'm going to need a list of all the morning sessions, and I'm going to need a list of all the afternoon sessions. And then I'm going to need that. And then I'm thinking through as I'm looking about this, I've got a bunch of different days and versions of this event that I'm creating. And so if I think about it, I'm going to create two new attributes, morning session ID and afternoon session ID, because if you think of all of the sub notes and other notes down in here, how do I know, how am I going to tell Tinderbox which container contains the morning sessions, which container contains the afternoon sessions? Well, the way I'm going to tell it that, as we talked about last week, we're going to be using IDs to be able to resolve that. So what I'm going to do up here is I'm going to see a variable string v morning session ID equals $session the $. Morning session ID, and then I'm going to take that same thing and I'm saying here v equals afternoon session ID. So, and I'm getting really close now. Then as I'm thinking about this too, well, what else do I need? So I'm thinking about, I've got this table that I'm wanting to build, and I'm going to want to populate this table with the elements of the morning session, with the elements of the afternoon session. I now know what the session IDs now are, number, etc. But the other thing I also now need is the counts. I need to know how many items are in each of the lists.
Pause before we go too far. Your afternoon session ID, after the equal sign, make it afternoon.
You're right.
And then close your table row tag in the header.
Where?
Right there, right where your cursor is.
Oh yeah. There you go.
Carry on.
Yeah, and that's stuff we would have caught along the way as we were iterating through, but thank you for doing that. That's great. So now we know what's going on, and then we have to start realizing, okay, I generally now know what I want, and I generally now know what I'm doing, but now I need to think in the context of how does a Tinderbox template work? Well, ultimately, my output at the end of all of my interactions is going to be value v table. So what I'm going to be saying is, hey, Tinderbox, I want you to perform a bunch of action code, and I want you to construct a table for me, and I'm going to want you to stick it into this value t table. So what that means now is I need to go up here, and I'm going to, and I could do this in a function, but I didn't. I'm going to say action. So now what this is saying, let's look at what we've got now. So now what we're saying is, by wrapping this out, because we're now going to start getting into Tinderbox action code writing, we're going to say, hey, Tinderbox, open up the export code for action code, so that anything in between these brackets is going to be action code that's going to be produced when this table is triggered, or when this template is triggered. And then whatever the result of all of this is you're going to create a v table. Okay. And now let's go ahead and construct our table first. Actually, let me do this first. So what I then want to do is say, okay, well, where am I going to get my list of these sessions? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say my morning sessions equals, and again, let's also look here. If you look at all my different notes, even in the morning sessions, there are tons of notes in morning session. And all I'm wanting is actually the session, the item that is the prototype that is session. I don't want speakers' names. I don't want notes. I don't want any of the other stuff that I'm doing with this. So I'm going to say, well, what do I really want for morning sessions? What I want for morning sessions in the list is I want to say v equals collect if, and then what am I doing? I'm descending from descendants of, well, the descendants of what? Of the morning session ID. And then prototype equals equals p session. And then what do I want? Like we talked about last week, is the ID. Right. So what am I saying now? I know I'm going to need rows. I know I'm going to need a table. I know I need to tell Tinderbox where the morning sessions are coming from. They're coming from the morning session ID that's I'm specifying. They're coming from the afternoon session ID. I'm wanting the descendants of the morning session ID note. I'm only wanting from the descendants of that note, those notes that are labeled session. and I want their ID number. So now I can take all of that. I can do the same thing here and change that to afternoon. Okay, and as we learned about last week, in last week's, if I'm passing the ID number as a designator, what that does is that's telling Tinderbox, go get the descendants for the notes whose ID is this. Well, where am I getting that ID? I'm getting it here. Well, where am I getting that? I'm getting it right there. So I'm basically saying, go get the ID number for that note, that particular note. So then that gives me my list. Now I have to think about, well, what are the other elements that I'm going to need when I'm constructing this table? And let's go all the way down here, and we're going to create some space. And the very first thing we need to know is we need to then make sure that all of these elements of HTML are going to get populated into our table. So let me go ahead and do that really quick. So I'm going to say vTable is going to equal. Now, because this has quotes in it, and HTML requires quotes, I'm going to wrap that in single quotes. So the very first line of our building our table is going to, and we want it to be plus equals, is going to be vTable equals plus equals doing this. And so I can take that same element and I go like this. And go like this. And I can do this. And I can spell morning right. Okay, and then we do this. Copy that there, and I can copy this one here. And then I can start getting it a little faster because I know what we're going to need here. And I can then grab that. That's ultimately going to end up here, but we're going to fix that a little bit later. Okay. And what we're going to do here, go like that. All right, and that's going to have that. I'm going to need the same thing here to close that up. That here. And I'm going to need this here. Okay, so essentially what we've done is, because this is buried in action code, we can go ahead and look at this. And now we can kind of test, is this going to kind of work? And so before we get too far down the pike, we'll go down here and we'll say test temp. So we're going to apply the template to this note. And we're going to say, is this going to kind of work? We're saying, yeah, okay, this is going to kind of work for us, right? I'm getting my column heads. And if I take a look here, oh, and then I can say, oh, wait a minute. It's good, but when I'm looking at the HTML, I see that I missed putting in the line breaks of N, because then that will help us visually get a sense of what's going on with our HTML. So now I'm going to go up in here. Oh, I don't want to put in that one. It's going to go, yeah. And that. That's good. And you'll see the part of the reason, and if you notice when we did that, you'll notice that our rows didn't work. So that's telling us something's wrong with our HTML. And when we come down here, we can see where it's wrong, as I missed the quotes there. Okay. So now, when we've done that, we can come back and we see now we've got our properly constructed HTML table. And when I look at export, you can see I've got some clean HTML. Table, here's a row. There are my two rows. Here's the close of the table. Here's another row. And we're looking pretty good. And I can put some more space line breakings in that. But now I know I've got a functional table. So now I go back to the logic of what we wanted to do before, is I now need Tinderbox to be dynamically creating essentially, and we can create some space in here so we can read it. So this heading's fine. And if we wanted to, just to add some clarity, we can go ahead and say that we want these headers to be bold. Right, so now if I go and make sure that works, I've now got my header sessions bold, so that's cute and that works. So now what we want to think about is, well, at the end of the day, the next big hurdle that we need to accomplish is we need Tinderbox to dynamically create all of these rows. So now what? So then we think about, well, how are we going to do that? Well, the first thing we need to know is we need to know how many rows we need Tinderbox to build for us. So what we're going to do is we're going to go have Tinderbox count variable number. And I'm just going to copy this from my template I'm using. We're going to have Tinderbox count. Give me the count of the number of morning sessions. So how do I do that? I take v morning sessions dot count, and that gives me the number of sessions I need in the morning. And then I say, I also then need v number. This one should be spelled properly. I also need v number, the count of the number of afternoon sessions. So I've created another variable. You guys with me so far? Make sense? All good? All right. Now, how do I know how many, so what I'm looking for is the maximum number of rows. So how do I do that? Well, the way I go about doing that is this. I say, give me the vmax session count equals max list, these two lists. And if I had another list, I could say, comma, the other list. And so what Tinderbox is doing with this constructs is saying, give me the max number of these lists, which list has the maximum number, and then that's going to resolve back with the maximum number. So just so you know, the answer is 11. I need 11 rows. And the morning and the afternoon session, we go back here. Where's the website for the event? Where did I put it? In my mini screen, so I lost it. So let's go back up here. Okay. So I know that the afternoon session, well, just visually, I know the after session is going to be longer, and because I've done it, I know how many what the count is. So I know that the afternoon sessions are going to be longer. So let's go back to our test template here. And so now what we need to do is having Tinderbox start iterating our the number of tables. And what we're going to be asking Tinderbox to do is to go through and say, hey, Tinderbox, I now need you to cycle through all of the sessions and build my rows for me. Okay. And so if you remember, we talked about before this idea of, like vlist.each x, right? So, and if you're doing that kind of code, what that says is for each item in the list, do this. You guys remember that from previous sessions and lists, right? And when I was first thinking about doing this, I'm like, okay, well, how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to do that by, and I'm thinking, well, what I really want to do is I want to force Tinderbox to only go through the cycle a number of times, and then this is the way you go about doing that. Instead of doing a dot each, it's going to be a dot each, but what you're going to say is, I want you Tinderbox to do 1, and then it's 3 dots, and then it's vmax session count. So now what I'm saying is, hey, Tinderbox, starting at 1, route through this cycle how many number of times? Well, the maximum number of rows. So what that's telling Tinderbox is, in this context, go produce 11 rows for me. Okay. And so then let's go ahead and populate this because we're running out of time. So I'm going to go ahead and paste this. So the first thing I'm going to say is make your v row sessions equal the first table row. And now we know that we need to also close a table row if we want. And then we're going to say for each of the okay, and I now also know there's 2 more variables that I'm going to need here. So let's think about this logically. What have we been asking Tinderbox to do? Go through and for each of the items in the morning session, go get me the ID of each of the items. So that's going to give me a list of ID numbers for each of the session numbers. So now if I go ahead and paste this in, you're seeing what I'm getting is, get me the session, create a new variable called session title morning, grab the short title of the ID number for X. So item number 1. And then go grab, and so remember, what's X? X is the first item of first session item of the morning, first session item in the afternoon. When this cycles through to number 2, X is going to be the second item in the list for morning and afternoon. When it goes to number 3, item is going to be the third item in the list. And so what that does for me is I now can go ahead and start cycling through this. And so now I can, let me just paste this real quick here. All right. So for the morning session, what I'm saying now, telling Tinderbox to do is I'm saying, as you're cycling through these lists, Tinderbox 1 through 11, go grab me the morning session short title, go grab me the morning session short title, and create, and then create a row for me. So create the row for the morning session, create the table data item I need, create me that, insert that morning session title, close it, then create a space because I want a column in between, and then create another session and then close it. And actually, I don't want this one for this, what we're doing here. Then for another session, create the session title and then close the row. Okay. And I'm going to show you a mistake that will happen in just a second when we do this. So essentially what that's now done is it has created the morning session. Now there's 2 other things that I need that I didn't show you. So you're seeing up here, I'm saying, and this is interesting, and this is what caught me off guard a little bit, is when I created an X, remember this X in this context is an ID number. Well, what do I need from that ID number? And this is why what I need is, if I know what I'm telling is go grab the morning session list and grab the at number. So remember what we just did with Phillip, where we said grab at 0, at 1, at 2, right? Well, the at number in this context is going to be, remember, well, what is our list going to be? This X is going to be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Right.
So now what I'm saying is go get me the ID number for item number 1 in the list. Go get me the ID number for item number 2 in the list, and so on. Now take that ID number and pass it to here. Right? So I'm now able to start parsing this through to be able to get that. And then if I've done this right, if I hit save, and we're right at the top of the hour. Let me see what I did wrong here. Oops. Come on. Come on. Preview, test. And we can see, all right, so it's not cycling through properly. What did I do wrong here? All right, well, let me just do this because this is the right code. And we'll go back through and we'll see what I did wrong. If I go here and paste in the right code. So now let's go back through and what we did. I had some testing going. I created my rows. I created my tables. I created my session IDs. I created my action IDs. I went through and grabbed the morning sessions. I went through and collected all of the descendant variable IDs in their sessions. I created my accounts. Oh, I know what I did wrong. Okay. So the other thing I did wrong here is, okay, I'm not telling it what to, I didn't create the variable ID. So I needed to create the variable ID. So now I have a variable ID that starts at 0. So the first one's going to pass to 0. And then this variable ID down here, I'm going to say is b equals 1. So I want you to now increment the ID number 0, 1, 2, 3. So that's So every time this cycles through, increase this ID number by 1. So now that I've done that, it will go through, and it didn't work again. And I'll iterate through it, but we're running out of time. So let me give you what the actual end result's going to be here. Okay, so let's go through and look at it. Got my test log here, create my sessions, create my table, grab my ID numbers, grab the descendant elements, do the counting that we were just doing, get the max count number, set the ID number of 1 for the at function, grab the max session numbers, go through and cycle what those, grab that ID number for @1, go through and cycle that. Then go ahead and create my row. Go ahead and create my morning sessions. I now know why the other one wasn't working. Go ahead and create my middle row. Go ahead and create my afternoon sessions. Go ahead and create my row, create the one, blah, blah, blah. Now, here's what I wasn't doing in the previous one when I pasted it in. If you look in here, I now need to tell the table function to go and put in the V session rows. Right? So if I go back to what we did before, if I undo this, you'll see here I didn't put in the V session rows. So if I paste that back in, so now we're asking Tinderbox, now that you've created every one of the rows that we need for the morning sessions, stick those variables in there, and now create my table for me. So now if we go and look, and that one still doesn't work, so let me go ahead and just show you the end result. If I go down here, and it's going to end up looking like that. Right? And so that's how you basically, so what we've basically done is showing how you can, take that, basically variabilize that .at function that we used with Phillip 30 minutes ago, using a number range scheme to be able to dynamically produce a table. So we're 4 minutes over on the top of the hour, but I thought that was kind of neat. Comments, thoughts, ideas, reactions?
It's very cool. So, and yeah, you got to start at 0.
Yeah, I forgot to start at 0 because it didn't know where to go.
Yeah.
So essentially the idea, and so if you think about it, next time you're doing this, you just want to methodically step through the process. What information do I need? What information do I have? And where do I want that information to go? And then you just sit there methodically building each line, each row, each element, and start placing the information where you want it to be. Right? And you end up with that. Okay. And again, this doesn't have to be an event. This could be whatever you want. But now I've been able to now quickly, here's a truncated version of the event. Here is if I go down here, here's a detailed version of the event. And some people will say, well, why are you doing this? Why don't you just do this in Excel, or why don't you just do this in something else? And the answer is, it would be kind of impossible to do this in any other tool, because when I properly get my data into Tinderbox and break it up atomically, like Phillip was doing in his previous demo, once the atomic information is there, I know where the session titles are, I know where the session start date and end times are, I know who my speakers are. And so then everything's all in its place. And then I just use templates and action code to move it to get it to where I want it to be. And if you're using variables, you're actually moving it temporarily just for the purposes of display, as opposed to destroying or transforming any data behind the scenes. And that's really, for me, that's the kind of the aha moments in the power of Tinderbox.
This is publish and subscribe. It was the data model for OpenDoc in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Well, and I think what's really powerful to think about what we've been doing here is, Mr. Bernstein and company, the community that's been working on these ideas have been iterating against these since the late 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So let's not forget that this stuff is, we stand on the shoulders of the giants that came before us, and this, and even Mark Bernstein's been iterating on this and these concepts and this ability to move this data around for decades. What's nice about Tinderbox for me versus other tools is Mark has chosen consciously not to tell us what he thinks we need to do. Like Microsoft is telling you, this is how you write a linear Word document. This is how you write a table. This is how you write a presentation. Mark's saying, here are the tools that now you can use to write a linear document, a table, or a presentation. Right. But with great power comes great accountability. So you now have to make the choices on how you want to be able to do that.
A steeper learning curve.
Yes, but once you've learned it, it's infinitely faster, right? Because I can't tell you how many years of my life I wasted messing around reformatting a PowerPoint or an Excel table. When now I can reformat a PowerPoint or an Excel table in minutes. Right. And my data is in one place. So I don't have to be moving my data around, and I'm not creating copies of my data unnecessarily. I have one place I go for my event data, and I can now output it in any way I want, as opposed to working in output and then having to reconfigure all of the various derivations of my data. And you know me, I'm typo king. What ends up happening is I start propagating typos rather than repropagating format.
Well, and you change your data in one place, and it changes everywhere it gets output. Every other place it appears, but it changes.
Correct. All right. Well, we're about 8 minutes over. Was this useful, helpful?
Yes.
Awesome.
And
I just like
again,
spending time with smart people. So
yeah.
I have one very simple question related to what you did.
Yeah.
When would you use TR versus TH?
When you want to have when you're using style sheets and you want the headers to be different than the normal cells. So in HTML style sheets, you can say, if you're a header, color it blue. And if you're a normal cell, don't. And it's just another way. It's just for appearance. And so if you think about it, when I've been talking about what I've been calling the 5 C's of knowledge management, which is nothing more than just a marketing effort to be able to brand my style of thinking and to be able to sell it, is we're separating content from structure and appearance. And so just like we were talking about, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Keynote, all of these output softwares intermix content, appearance, and structure. They do it for us. With Tinderbox, you get all of your content. It is nearly as purely as atomic, structureless, and appearanceless as possible. And then you use action code and template. Action code to transform the text as you need it, either permanently and or temporarily in the form of variables. And then you use export code, templates, and CSS, or HTML and CSS, to create structure. Whether or not that's a table, a bulleted list, or a heading formatted list, or any nature of that regard. So really, what Tinderbox gives us is that ability to separate content, structure, and appearance. And so later, now that I've done this, later I can easily go in, add a CSS style sheet, and now add appearance to the table that we just created. And I can do that anytime I want. And I can, and then once I've created the core structure of the table, I could have 5 different versions of a CSS appearance to mess around with different color themes and different ideas. But that means that none of my content's being messed with. Whereas when you're in Excel or PowerPoint, it becomes a whole helly mess, and you end up getting 10 different versions of that one document, and then you don't know which one has the actual base level content that's correct.
Thank you. I've got to run. My other daughter has made dinner, so I've got to go.
Yeah, we all got to go, but I'm hopefully you enjoyed it today.
Thank you very much. Bye.
So long.
See you, everybody. Bye.